Next on the list is Sheriff.
Thanks, guys.
We've been in contract negotiations for law enforcement coverage of the city of Odebolt for about a month. Kind of stemmed from the economy, their budget. They had to eliminate their part-time position. So we've kind of started a negotiation with them. Supervisor Bensley and I met with them in a special meeting last Wednesday to discuss this proposal. To make it short here, what we're proposing is for $75,000 a year and their equipment, we will take on their current police chief, who is currently on our civil service list, so legally we can hire him as a deputy. We would bring him on as a deputy sheriff. 60% of his time, or our deputies work 10-hour shifts, so 6 hours of his shift would be assigned to the city of Odebolt, leaving the other 2 hours a day or for the 40 hours for the rest of us to cover. Which, you know, Keith comes out, he can do an hour in the morning or an hour in the afternoon before he goes home. He's already down there. I don't see much of a problem there. With this, what that does is depending on which budget you look at, their current law enforcement budget for the city of Odebolt is $95,000. Their proposed 2009-2010 budget is $103,000. So in essence, we're saving them $20,000 to $28,000 a year in their coverage. That leaves us about $17,000 difference from what it's going to cost us to put him on, which we projected at about $57,900. By the time you figure the salary, the holiday pay, the overtime pay, the FICA, IPERS, and insurance, that's what it would roughly cost us to bring a new person on, just for that portion. That leaves us about $17,000 difference. Out of that $17,000 would come our extra expenses such as fuel costs, those types of things, and would also leave us a balance somewhere about $8,000 or $9,000 a year that we could set aside for vehicle replacement. So we have a fund to replace a vehicle every 4 years or so as needed. Out of our meeting Wednesday, 2 issues got brought up. First issue being, one of the council members asked if we would consider lowering our asking rate the first year because they're giving us their equipment. My answer back to that was, well, somebody's got to have the equipment. Either we're going to get it from you or you're going to get charged more so we can buy the equipment we need. The other question brought up was they asked Keith Flink when he was planning on retiring, and then wanting to know when Keith retired if we were going to fill that vacancy with another deputy in Odebolt, and Jack brought up that, well, we'd probably try to put that position in early. The contract does guarantee them that one deputy would be living within their city limits. So that's kind of where we're at. I think their city council is going to, I think, take a vote on that on April 6th. At that point, we would then draw up a 20-day agreement, and it looks like we would probably start this July 1st. Like our other contracts, it would run for a year and automatically renew itself unless either party gave us 6 months written notice from
6 months
with an intent to terminate. Yeah. If we decided to terminate on either side, the agreement would be that the initial equipment we would receive from the city of Odebolt, if it was still in operation, would get returned back to them. And if it had been rotated out or replaced, then it would be at my discretion what equipment got returned. But if we got a radar from them, we'd guarantee them a radar back. If we got a car from them, we'd guarantee them a car back. And then they would have to negotiate, obviously, with that deputy who'd be laid off, whether he was going to go back to work for them or find employment elsewhere. Unless we could absorb him into our, you know, we got a retirement or somebody leave, and or absorb that in that way.
Couple things. I think, I guess I would like to have you indicate what portion of the 17,000 that you have available, and what's going to be used for what, and I guess I would want to be reassured that that level is enough to more than maintain expenses, and I guess I'm happy about the fact that you are considering that there will need to be a fund for the replacement of the car down the line. I mean, that we have to cover our expenses.
We in this proposal, we will be negotiating with the city every year in December for a projected increase, because we know that with our insurance is going to increase during the step process. They're also aware of that. On that 17,000, on an average, we're spending $3,000 a guy on fuel costs a year. That's what it averages out to. So, you know, even if he was, I would project it would be less than that, because 60% of his shift isn't going to be out driving around. It's going to be in town. So, you know, there you're down to about 10,000. Because he's a former reserve deputy, we've already got most of the uniforms for him, so we don't have any expenses there. So, you know, that's where I'm coming up with that 10,000, 8,000. You know, the rest of that training, additional training that we'd be sending to. So,
So you're really comfortable with this proposal?
Yeah, I'm real comfortable with the amount left over and the rollover and those types of things on that portion. The other thing I put in the contract proposal is that special events, i.e. Creek Days or any other social event being sponsored where they want additional help, they pay for it. They pay for it themselves.
And they do that.
And, you know, like Creek Days, traditionally, the Odebo Police Department has hired people to come in and help with security at an extra expense. They're going to be responsible for paying for that. Or if there's some social event, then that organization sponsoring that will be responsible for any additional coverage, paying for that. We'd gain access to their city hall and their computer so that we could get into our server and have our databases available there. It'd be a substation essentially. So you wouldn't be running up to SAC all the time to do reports or paperwork.
What about as an example, the computer in their office? Say that goes down, who's responsible for maintaining computer access in Odebo?
We didn't discuss that. I would say it would either, well, we'd have to negotiate with them. Either if we pay for it, then if we back out of the contract, it comes with us. You know, but we didn't discuss that.
Open the floor to discussion of the contract, Jack or Dean.
The deputy's under your full control.
Right. The deputy, the enforcement efforts are strictly controlled by me.
So the chain would be, if I'm unhappy with the way you're handling domestic disputes or dogs and Odebo, I come to you.
Right.
As a citizen, I don't go directly to the deputy and complain to him.
Well, as a council, you know, like we do in the other contract, I'm hired by the council essentially. That's kind of the way I look at it. These guys work for me. So if the council has an issue with the way things are being done, it should be brought to me, and then we'll address it out from there. The other thing that got brought up, and it made a lot of sense, one of them asked, let me back up. We're talking about how Ida County is set up. They're county-wide. They're unified law, which means the entire county voted to have the sheriff's office do the county law enforcement. And when you get unified law on a county vote, then the municipalities can levy more for that protection.